Okay, it's my favorite time of the year in Smogon. World Cup is starting. If you guys don't know, I hosted this tournament for the last 3 years, and now I will get to talk about it. I never talked much about the tournament, or well, I never shared my personal opinions about the various teams because I was hosting, so I couldn't do any yapping. I had to stay unbiased and, not influence and be fair to everyone and all of that. But now that I'm not hosting anymore, I get to enjoy this as a spectator and I get to yap, which is amazing. So hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully you get some value out of my perspective. I have the last few years of qualifiers here for some retrospectives. I have a tier list where I will rank the teams according to how I think they will do. And something big this year, something new, is that 5 teams will qualify automatically and 2 more will qualify from the playoffs. We are expanding the main event, so instead of just 3 teams qualifying up, like in the past years, we're going to have 7 now. So this is the best chance that pretty much any of these teams have ever had to make the main event. So it's a really exciting time. We have a new format. It's no longer all current gen. We have some SV, we have old gens, and we have underused and Ubers. We have low tiers for the first time in history, I think. Probably, yes. I'm pretty sure it's the first time in history that we have low tiers in World Cup. So yeah, maybe not. Maybe some of the really old ones also had low tiers. I don't remember right now. But either way, yeah, this is a great tournament, and this year is going to be very exciting. And well, let's just dive into it. Let's start with Africa. I'm going to go in alphabetical order. I will make sure to add timestamps at the bottom. Let's start with Africa. Now, Africa, let's start from the history. They started in 2020, was their first year. They got absolutely pummeled by Greece. And then they shut up again. They got pummeled by India. And then they got pummeled again by basically everyone in 2022. In 2023, they turned it around. They had, if I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure Africa had one of the strongest starts. They were like 6-0 or something like that. And it was them with Belgium and Bangladesh, if I recall, at the start. And Belgium and Bangladesh actually held through to the end and qualified. But Africa, unfortunately, fell short. And so they didn't quite make it, which was very disappointing. But given the strong start, but yeah, so they were on the upswing. Now, a big thing about Africa is that their longtime captain, who was there from the start, is Amir, and he is banned now. So that's tough for them. It was a 2-0 last year. It was generally the core of the team. I mean, the captain, the leader. So they will have to do without Amir. Maybe he's still in their chat. I don't know. I would guess that he is because he was a very passionate guy. But yeah, so they will have to do without Amir. But that doesn't mean that they are weak. Their best player, in my opinion, is Suzuya, who used to go by Ender. You see that he went to last year, and he gets to play in his favorite tier of Ubers now. So I mean, if Suzuya doesn't go 2-0 here in Ubers, that will be a huge shock. He's by far, I think, he's the best player on this roster. But there are a lot of other potential good spells, like Jovan is a pretty consistent player who has been doing pretty decent in many tournaments for a while now. Very experienced guy. You see that 1,500 messages on Pokémon. This guy has been around. He is good. Loki fan made some waves. He's a no name in little cup communities. So there are some very decent players here. I think I'm more inclined to believe that last year was an overperformance and that they are going to be a middle to bottom tier team again. But they are definitely not bad. They have a good amount of quality. It's just that these lots, like this guy or D2 Kwon, like I never seen these guys. When you've never seen these guys, there's a good chance that they shock you and they perform well. But there's also a good chance that they are just not ready for a tournament like World Cup. So we will have to find out. As far as the opponents, I think they also rolled some pretty tough stuff. They rolled Enzo from Argentina, that's tough. They rolled JJ, they rolled Leo, they rolled Sunsets. CF Mon is probably one of the hardest players you can pull from Austria as well. Yeah, it's not Squirtle nor had some good games last year for Bangladesh. Just Franco is obviously very tough. Not a lot of luck in their pairings either. So I think Africa, I'm going to rank. Maybe I will shift them up or down later on, but I will put them in low chance for now. They're not bad. They have a lot of bright points. Suzuya is probably, I haven't seen everyone, but I would guess he's the best Uber slot in the qualifiers. And Jovan is solid, and all of these other players are generally pretty okay, but not quite favorites or not quite in the high tiers. I think history tells us this region is not super strong, but we'll see. They could definitely have a repeat of last year and put up a good performance. Argentina, Just Franco is amazing. That's my okay. I teamed with Just Franco in SCL and I teamed with Enzo in SPL, and they were both fucking amazing. They are two of the best players in this stage of the tournament, and they should be able to carry the rest of their team, I would guess. The rest of the team is not bad, but they're definitely not at the heights of Enzo and Franco. And so I think it depends. A lot will depend on how much Enzo will carry the team building. Franco, he's usually a low tier guy, so it's good that he gets to play, but I don't know how much he will carry in the other slots. He does play some OU, so maybe he will help with SV as well. But yeah, I mean, this team is just everyone else mostly. I mean, there's this guy has a bit less experience. You see, less presence on Smogon, but in general, there's a lot of players who play a lot of tournaments on Smogon and do quite well. Franco and Enzo are the only ones who are like really like SPL caliber, like high level. But everyone else is also serviceable, especially for this stage of the tournament. I don't think their pairings are that bad. Obviously, they got probably the hardest pairing, the two hardest pairings. But other than those two, I think they actually got pretty good pairings. So they will probably just lose those two, but then they will have a good chance everywhere else. I mean, obviously, there's other good players. There's Devin, TDMT. But all in all, I don't think their pairings are too bad. Oh yeah, I didn't do the history retrospective. So they're not actually, yeah, okay, 2020 like Africa. You see that they didn't really have a lot of the players that they have now. Yeah, you see that there were some name changes, so there might be more than you think. But still, yeah, it was a different lineup. But over the years, they really found a bit more consistency. You see that they made it past Belgium this year and lost to US South, who would go on to win this entire World Cup. And then here they made it through this first stage, but they lost to France, and they would go on. France would also go on to win the entire World Cup. So that was funny for Argentina. Last year, not quite as good. Probably, I mean, if Enzo wins these two games instead of losing them, it's a different story. But you see that they have the quality to do pretty well. A lot of 1-1s. If you have a lot of 1-1s and a few 2-0s, you will be fine. So Argentina, I would definitely say they have a solid chance. They're usually at top end of this tournament. Now last year not quite so good, but I think they're solid. I think Enzo and Just Franco are probably at their best They've grown a lot over the last year or so, and they got their first official appearances. They will be doing quite good. Corvir I know because they play GSC Ubers, but I definitely see them play basically every gen of Ubers. I don't keep up too closely with them, but I know they're solid as well. So yeah, good coverage, good players all around. Argentina, very solid. We move on to Asia. Now, Asia is a weird team. Obviously, they have a very long history in World Cup. They won the first 3 World Cups. They underwent a lot of changes over the year due to the rulings against continental teams or for continental teams. They had to deal with, Bangladesh went off and made their own team. India went off and made their own team. And so China, of course, went off and made their own team. So they are probably at their weakest, certainly over the last couple of years, they are at their weakest ever. They failed to make it out of qualifiers for 2023. So definitely a tough time historically for Asia. But I actually really like the roster this year. You have Sugar High, who was banned because they gave their password to their account because they didn't care anymore or something like that. I don't remember. There was some drama with Sugar High. He had to be banned, but then I guess he got his account back and everything is fine now. So that's weird. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't really know the guy. But if he's starting, I assume that he is fine-ish. And he used to be a very good player. so that's something. And the thing I like about Asia is that everyone else, they're like these young triad guys. Like JJ is just 16. They're those high school kids or fresh out of high school kids who just have a lot of time to get on and play Pokemon. Not all of them. We see some older people. But that's good too. You need to have some people who have more experience for more stability. A strong point for Asia is for sure the low tiers. Udon Girl, I don't remember how much. Both Udon Girl and Manaphy, I think they were drafted in SCL. They probably didn't start a full season, but they were definitely up there. So definitely 2 of the best low tier slots for this stage, and they would definitely hold their own in the main event as well. So good stuff for Asia there, and good stuff in SV. I mean, Devin, JJ, Mimikyu, Stardust, just quality all around. I would say they're older gens like these guys, or SSM SS. I don't know them as much. I've never seen them play as much as I saw everyone else. So they might have some trouble there, but it's if they're starting for Asia, probably they are at least decent, giving them the benefit of the doubt. But I mean, just off of SV, this team should do really, really well. I think they are favorites to finish top 5 and qualify to main event right back. So I'll put them in favorites. Now, Austria. This is fun. Obviously, Austria had that whole drama. They got called out for being turbo randoms and what else? What did they say about them? Draft mains and or whatever. Obviously, a lot of these players are not super well known. This guy has 2 posts. This guy has 14 posts. But I do actually think they have more strength than people give them credit for. They had Astoria pull out. They had Charmflash try to pull out, but then he got banned. So I mean, he's not there. So they definitely lost their 2 biggest names. But I actually think they still have a good amount of quality. Now Austria is actually one of the oldest teams. You saw that they were playing here in 2018 already. They were joining tournaments. They had back when RBY was in the World Cup, and then they joined again, and then they joined again. You see that they are literally always losing. So that's not super encouraging for them. 7-9 and then 8-8. This was their best performance yet. But I think they're not bad. I think their score from last year, this 8-8, is a pretty reasonable representation of their actual level. I think MJ is a super underrated player. If you don't know MJ, this guy, I think, is one of the best random battles players around. He's very underrated, even in the random battles community, but I think he's really solid. He has a good brain for the game. He should do quite well. Rofna is another guy who maybe you have never heard of, but he plays quite well in random battles. Sifman has been playing for Austria for basically since the start. Was he here already? No, not quite in 2018. Yeah, okay. He has been there since 2020, so I mean, he's been around. Mango Stick, Drakenkiller, those guys have also been around a few years for them. So I mean, you have to call them underdogs, but I don't think they are the worst team in the tournament. I actually think they have some chances of repeating this middle performance. And I mean, we saw earlier that 7 teams will be qualifying. I think there's a very real chance that these guys overperform just a little bit. They get 2 or 3 extra wins based on compared to what you would expect, and all of a sudden they're in playoffs or even qualified. I really don't think the odds are that bad because they have MJ and they have all of these guys who maybe they're not star players, maybe they don't really play the game too actively, but when they show up, they are not terrible. Like, they know how the game works. They've been around. So I actually think Austria, they're definitely in the low chance tier. They're probably below Africa, but I don't think they are quite as bad as Chancellor would have you believe. And we'll see how that goes for them. Now, this is a big one. Bangladesh. Bangladesh, if you weren't around last year, well, okay, now Bangladesh, we need to start from the start. We need to start from 2017, where Team Bangladesh signed up and got pummeled by Latin America. But this was the start of a very big story. You see this guy, legendary user. He beat this Latin American opponent 7 years ago. The year after, they beat India. He won again, and then they got destroyed by Austria. You see, MJ was already playing back in 2018. Holy moly! I actually didn't know MJ had been around this long. Yeah, MJ is just legend. Okay. So yeah, Bangladesh, they were around in 2017, 2018. Then they skipped some years. Yeah, they skipped a bunch of years, but then they were back here. They lost to China narrowly. Did China go on to qualify this year? Yeah, China beat India and qualified this year. So this was a narrow loss to a pretty strong team. And then, yeah, last year, in 2022, they had a really bad campaign where they looked completely lost. But then, in 2023, out of nowhere, they completely crashed the qualifiers. They went to main event. They had a really strong start in the main event, but then it all fell apart once people started catching on to their playstyles. Once people started countering their teams, it kind of fell apart for Bangladesh, and they had to play a tiebreaker with US Northeast for relegation, which is fucking crazy. If you were not around last year, you missed one of the greatest storylines of World Cup history with Bangladesh. But all the same, they did end up losing that tiebreaker. Northeast is safe, and Bangladesh has to fight again. Now, what about their lineup? They are losing, I think, a decent amount of players, aren't they? They are losing... Is Mushfiq around? Mushfiq is around. Kaif is around. Actually, no, they're not losing that many. They said last year that they were having doubts about whether they would form again because their real life is getting busy again. I think Oshim is gone. I think Maswood is gone. Definitely some people who got busy, but I actually think a lot of their players are still around. So Squirtle Nornor is around. Sumav is around, Mushfiq is around. Mushfiq beat Panni last year. Mushfiq, let me repeat that. Mushfiq beat Panni last year in the main event of the World Cup. He has two pairings that are very, very big names, actually. Mushfiq only gets big names in this tournament. That's crazy. Last year he played against Punny, Finchinator, and I'm not remembering the third name now, but someone else who was really, really high level. So yeah, I mean, this guy. But I mean, he fought back. He beat Bunny. So this is a crazy team. This is, I mean, last year they were completely magical. This year, we don't know. We will have to see if they repeat or not. I love Bacon and Let's Rumble Shall We are both new players, but I have watched both of them in the Random Battles community as well. And they actually play quite well in Random Battles. They are pretty solid players. So, this is a very reasonable roster. Kaif is obviously great, probably the biggest name, definitely the biggest post count, the most activity on Smogon. Ryan. Is this the Ryan without a 3DS, or is this a new Ryan? I wonder. Probably a new Ryan, because only 4 posts. But I mean, Sumavi's here. This guy, 15 messages, but he fucking killed it last year. So, all of these guys, you know, not many messages, but last year they showed up to play. So, I think you have to say that last year was not a complete fluke. I think you have to say that these guys actually know how to play a fair amount. I think you have to put them as favorites just behind Asia. Just behind. Brazil. Now, I mean, I will be brief here. Brazil is a team who has had very many ups and downs in history. Their level seems to change drastically depending on how much they're feeling it, how much they care. But all the same, you look at this lineup, it is clearly by far the strongest lineup of any team here. Everyone except the Ubers player has a long history in official tournaments. Everyone here is really, really good. Thiago Nunes is one of the best upcoming players, one of the best, I think, most improved players over 2023. Mansmith had that insane SPL run last year, 2023 as well. Tamahome, Eternal Spirit, they all go without saying. They're bringing back Luigi, Elodin, obviously. I mean, literally everyone. Like, everyone except the Ubers players who I'm not really familiar with. So maybe this guy actually has two really tough pairings, but everyone else, I mean, they are just going to... It will be shocking if they don't qualify very quickly, especially with 5 slots. Brazil are the #1 favorite team in this tournament. By far, it's not close. Now we move on to Canada. Canada has, well, let's start from the low tiers because these 2 slots are really helping Canada. FC is one of the best Ubers players around. Amukamara, very much better at UU than OU. So the introduction of low tiers is definitely helping them. The introduction of old gens also definitely helping them because JYT, Sky Penguin, Hayburn are all much better at 876 than they are at Gen 9. So very strong slots on the old tier and the low tiers. I think this will basically automatically upgrade them from a team that is fighting from relegation to a team that will remain pretty stable in main event for the foreseeable future. I expect them to make it up. I don't expect them to be quite as strong as Brazil because their SV is actually, I think, a bit weak. Those are players who have played for Canada before. Hypertonics, Potato Chan, 3D, Balur. Sunsets, I've also seen them in random battles. They're really solid. But I think when you compare them to Brazil, who has just everyone is legitimately just starter level in SPL, it's just not quite at the same level. But I do think Canada is really strong, and I do think they should be expected to make it back up quite easily. So we are already starting to fill in the 5 automatic qualification spots over here. But hey, still a lot of teams left to judge. Chile. Okay, I'm a big fan of Chile. I think they just have great energy. They started pretty recently, I think. Yeah, they weren't around. They still weren't around even all the way in 2021, but they did show up in 2022. They went 8-8 and they went 10-6 in 2023. They were really close in 2023. I think they got swept by, was it United Kingdom or Belgium? I'm not remembering the pairings now. But yeah, Chile has been a solid team in these 2 years, and I think they will be a solid team again. They don't have that star power. You wouldn't really consider any of their players like really high level, but they are consistently good. I mean, you have Raptor probably. I guess Raptor is probably their best player on paper, at least in World Cup tiers. But yeah, you have Mako, you have Wildman, you have all of these other very, very serviceable players. You have Azog, Lazuli, Mendiz, John, Mr. McLovin. It's maybe not quite the same level of playing skill and results historically, but he is iconic. So I mean, it's a pretty consistently solid lineup. We have some we have some Latin America team kills in RSU. That's funny. But yeah, this team definitely solid chances to repeat their performances of 2022 and 2023. And I mean, if last year had the same number as this year, Chile would have qualified outright. This is fourth. I mean, tied fourth place. They would have gone up. So I think you have to give them a solid chance. Are they above or below Argentina? That is tough to say. I think I will put them slightly below Argentina because I think Argentina's peaks are higher, and if Argentina pops off, I think the Argentina ceiling is just higher. I think Chile, even if everyone performs really well, they don't really have that star power to. Sometimes in World Cup, especially in the tier that has multiple slots, you see that there is someone, or either one person or one team, who has a fantastic read on the metagame. They are really active, they are playing a lot, they are constantly innovating and pushing the boundaries of the metagame. And I think Argentina has more potential for that with Enzo and just Franco compared to Chile, who has not quite so many specialists of the tier. And not quite at the same level, in my personal opinion. But I could easily be proven wrong. For now, I think I rank Argentina a tiny bit above Chile because of their potential. Now, China. China has a long history in this tournament. 2019, they were already here. They were beating India, narrowly losing to Latin America. Rest in peace to Chengdu, old Super Bro. This guy is fire. I spoke to him on some occasions. He has 7 posts. Yes, I spoke to him. Yeah, I mean, very strong team historically, very close to making main event over and over and over. They made it in 2021. They did not make it again in 2022 and 2023, but you see that they were up there both times. They were very much up there. And so, China, really strong team. Are they quite strong enough to make it? I would lean yes. Now, let's talk about their player some. 691 is phenomenal. China has a lot of really, really strong underused players. Allen Xia plays underused. 691 plays underused. I was considering Allen Xia in SCL myself last year. It was one of the options if things got spicy and I needed that cheap underused. He was one of the options. I think they are all really close to the top levels, and we will finally get to see them play. Well, not both of them in underused, but at least one of them. Now, the big miss is obviously separation. This guy is by far the highest profile player from China on Smogon. I think in part that's because he actually communicates in sufficient English, and a lot of the other guys struggle with that. So it's easier for him to get recognition socially as well. But I mean, you see separation has been around for forever. Holy shit, Mushfik got separation as well in 2021. Mushfik just gets all the best players every time. That's crazy. But anyways, yeah, you see separation has been around for as long as Team China has been around. And so his miss is a big one. and I do think overall that won't actually impact China's chances too much because they're a very deep team. This guy, Chaos2333 also plays Yo-Yo, by the way. So I mean, the underused support is through the roof. But yeah, I mean, Louis the Ninth. I don't actually know how you pronounce this. This guy also, he was in my SCL team chat because he is a helper for Entrocephalo. So this guy is actually really good, at least at supporting, at team building. I don't know how he plays himself. I haven't quite watched him all that much. But definitely knows the tier, definitely a serviceable slot. I've seen this guy play in Ruins of Alpha Premier League. He's good. LZA, he was in my team with Tigers. He's good. Alencia is solid. Some of the SV slots I'm not so solid about. This guy I actually have just never seen. This guy I know that he moderates Chinese translations, so that's good for him. I don't actually know how he plays. But I mean, overall, across the board, I mean, there's just a lot of quality for this level. They're definitely above average. Maybe they're not favorites, but I do think they have a solid chance, and I would probably put them above Argentina and Chile, just because I really rate from SS to underused. I think all of these slots are very, very likely to perform really well, and then there should be sufficient quality and enough wins from the rest. Even if I'm not super confident about any of them all that much. We move on to Greece. Now, Greece is a team who has a long history. They were actually one of the first teams to qualify from qualifiers, if I'm not mistaken. Were they? Oh yeah, no, they qualified the year before this. They qualified in 2016. I didn't even open that thread because it was just one match between Greece and Latin America. And Greece won it and they qualified. And they held in main event for a long time. But they started faltering at some points, but they still made it back in 2020. And I mean, last year was the first year where they fell down again, and then they stayed down. Now, this team has lost a lot of their best players historically to random bans. CBU got banned, Rudolph got banned, AC11 got banned. Basically, half of their lineup. Oh, Hoopa's dad is Mysterious Sam. That explains a lot, because I was looking at this and I was like, who the fuck is Hoopa's dad? Okay. But yeah, I got lost. I was saying they lost a lot of players, a lot of quality to bans, and they failed to make it out last year. That sucks for them, but unfortunately, looking at this lineup again, with the larger roster, with all the bans, with Astamatitos quitting, I don't think they have what it takes to make it back up. A lot of these names I straight up don't recognize. I don't know this guy. It's literally one post. I don't know this guy. I don't think I know this guy. Maybe I've seen this guy around like a little bit, but yeah. So there are obviously some quality slots. There's Supa's dad. I guess I have to call him that now. There's Bluebirds, there's Sphere, there's Pharaoh. There are some quality slots. GLFG went 2-0 last year, and I believe he was picked up in. Is it really SPL? I don't know if I'm making that up. It might have been Royals of Alpha Premier League instead, but I believe it might have been picked up in SPL. I don't know. I didn't really follow this 2024 SPL too closely, to be honest. But either way, I mean, yes, there is some quality, but the new names, they're all really shaky. I don't think this team really has the depth to survive. And even the established names, it's not like they are superstars. They are solid, but not, it's not like Brazil level of just established year after year official players. It's not quite there. So I think Greece is a pretty weak team. I do think I have to put them above Africa and Austria, but definitely below the top teams, which if I had to pick 7 teams, this is not a bad list already, but we do still have more teams to rank. So let's go and do that. Okay, Latin America. Latin America is a team that has suffered a lot of losses in terms of rosters. due to other nations making their own teams. In the past, they were a main event team. They would have had all of Mexico, all of Argentina, all of Chile, all of Peru. I don't actually know if Peru have. No, I don't think Peru signed up this year, but they did make a team on their own last year. Anyways, the point is, a lot of Latin American nations made their own teams, which led to Latin America losing some quality over the last few years. But they are fucking back. Look at this SV lineup. Bea, Gacha, Storm Zone. That's it. You don't need to say anything else. That's a team that is going to qualify for sure. They're basically starting 6-0. The rest of the lineup is not bad either. I mean, Louis Roman and Fake, they're pretty solid upcoming players. Leo is a veteran, Ray Scarface is a veteran, Lycans is a veteran, Feliburn is a veteran, Edgar is the most veteran of them all. I mean, I don't think their bottom end is super solid. I think a lot of these players are, they play, they are around, but they're not really trying quite as hard as maybe other teams who have, all of those new, really motivated people. But even still, they've been around so long, they know the game, they know how to play, they should be fine. Especially in the old ones where you don't really need to be super up to date with everything. I mean, it's fairly easy to catch yourself up. So yeah, I think this team will start 6-0 and get comfortably enough to make it across the finish line. Are they better than Canada? Are they better than Asia? Oh, that's debatable. It really comes down to how well you rate those other slots in Latin America. But I do think they are about comparable with Canada, but the peak is stronger for Latin America. I mean, they have 3 complete star players over here. So I think I'm going to rank Latin America slightly above Canada, but it's really close. In my mind, Latin America, Canada, and Asia are kind of basically, you could order them anyway, and I would probably not be mad. Actually, maybe Asia is closer to Bangladesh than to Canada. I'm not sure. Well, either way, Latin America, really solid. Should make it up. We move on to Mexico. Mexico is a team who has suffered from having all of their best players play for Latin America instead of Mexico. So they've put up decent rosters. They've gone 7-9 both of the last 2 years. They didn't join before 2022. So they're not going to light the world on fire, I don't think, because, I mean, if they were at full power, if they had Edgar, who is Mexican, Ray Scarface, who qualifies for Latin America through Mexico, I believe Gacha is also, from Mexico, maybe things would have been a bit different, but they are playing, weekend roster, a lot of slots that just haven't done super well in the last couple years. I don't see why you would believe in them to suddenly turn it around, because I mean it's basically the same names, and they weren't too exciting last time. You haven't really seen them perform super well anywhere over the course of the last year. So I think it's going to be another disappointing year for Mexico, and probably this team will forever be captured by the fact that Latin America is sucking up all of their best players into their own. So I will be very happy if I'm proven wrong, but I expect Mexico will have quite the struggle trying to qualify. Actually, I might even put them in maybe next year. Yeah, I actually think I just don't see the ceiling for this team. I mean, they have some decent players, but when everyone else is looking quite a bit stronger, I don't really expect them to do very well. Which is really unfortunate, because I actually quite like them. I think they're nice guys. But yeah, I mean, there's no Akaru. I mean, I guess Akaru went out too. But that guy, in theory, is a really strong player. Granted, he mostly plays doubles. But yeah, it's just not enough quality in this roster, not enough depth. I just don't see it for them until they get their players back from Latin America. Now we move on to Netherlands. Netherlands are a very weird team with a lot of history, because they signed up as part of Benelux and then as the Netherlands, Actually, this time they very nearly made it. They went, I think they lost this last game to D+C, but they were one game away from qualifying in 2019 as the Netherlands, and who knows what would have happened. Because probably if they qualify, then Europe has to give their players away to Netherlands. One game away in 2019 could have changed the course of history for them, because of course a lot of their best players have been playing for Europe for the last few years. But then after that failure, they didn't even form in 2020, they didn't form in 2021, they didn't form in 2022, they did not form in 2023, and finally Netherlands are back. They're giving it another shot, and I think they're kinda good, I'll be honest. Now, they don't have the superstar like SPL player type of names. However, Ivar57, this guy won 2 other tournament circuits in a row. You think, what the fuck is that? What does other tournament circuit mean? Well, it means that essentially he is really good at all of those random meta games like, I don't know, OMs, like, I don't even know which ones in particular he's good at, but I know he's won 2 circuits. I know I played against him when I was doing tryouts for random battle team tournament, and he kicked my ass. He was really good. This guy is just a very quick learner, very good brain for the game. Ivar57 will surprise people if he's given a chance. I think he's probably capable of beating both of his opponents. Well, he's definitely capable. I think he's likely to do it. And then you have all of these players. I mean, Drad has been around forever. Quinn, you've seen them around probably at some point. Not so familiar with Luxance or Poseidon Wrath, but they're probably serviceable. I don't know them. OJR is a fantastic player. I've seen him play. I've seen him around in tons of tournaments. I think they're really good as well. Michileus is literally the winner of the random battle circuit. You've seen he has a join date of 2013. This guy has been playing Pokemon for longer than most of you guys watching this video. He's really good. He was in this roster in 2019, wasn't he? Yeah, he was there. KJ Das, same thing. They've been around forever. Keepcliff, a newer player relatively. I know they are more LC than UU, but probably serviceable in UU. Einskrad, this is another guy who, whenever I watch him play, even when he's not very familiar with the meta, he's always clicking reasonably good moves. And I think a team like this, even if they're not super active, even if they're not super experienced in the meta games that are tested in this tournament, even if they don't have SPL experience, it's just a lot of people who click decently good buttons. They have a lot of experience, they've played this game a lot, they generally know which clicks are good and which clicks are bad. And that goes a very long way in qualifiers when you're not playing against superstars all of the time. I think Netherlands have a solid chance. I know this is probably going to shock some of you. I know this is maybe ranking them above where most people would rank them, but I really like this Netherlands roster. I think there is a chance that we see 2019 rectified, Netherlands qualified, Europe's reign of terror ended. I hope so. I am honestly rooting for them. I hope Netherlands go far. We come to Portugal. Portugal, I don't know basically all of them. I know way 2 seconds. I don't know why he's playing for Portugal because he's French, but I guess he moved there or something. I don't know Clora. I don't know I Feel Thabby. I don't know M. Souza Gamer. I don't know Bandlist. I know Ultinuba because he plays RBY. RBY is not in this tournament. I don't know how good they are at SM. I don't know Bagania 13. I don't know the Special 1. And I don't know Street Womb. So this is one of those teams that is completely brand new. And I don't know about you guys, but you see that the completely brand new teams tend to be near the end, near the bottom, usually. I think Portugal is a player, historically they have a decent player base. There might be a future for them. Players like Pearl, players like Septros, players like Ricardo. There have been some very solid players from Portugal over the years, but this current lineup is very little players who are recognizable. Wait 2 seconds. Maybe if Black and White was in the tournament, he'd be solid, but in SV, not going to change things all too much. When your star is a player who is not even maining their tier, it's probably not super good. I think Portugal, you have to expect them to place near the bottom, but you know, you never know. We don't know these guys. Maybe they're very good. Maybe they pull up Bangladesh. Maybe they pull up Belgium. You never really know. That's the beauty of this tournament. South Korea. South Korea is a team who signed up for the first time last year. They did not have a good campaign. They really struggled. I do know that they won the Battle Spots Singles World Cup. They won BSS World Cup. And their community seems to mainly focus on that. But evidently it is a pretty strong community if they're showing up year after year just to play World Cups in tiers that they don't really know. So they have that going for them, and I think there is a possibility that the trend is going up after last year. Maybe if they're prepared in the tier a bit more. But a lot of these names are not really super recognizable, and until we see them actually go up, I think you have to expect them to stay down. Because I mean, a lot of these players don't really use Smogon even. I don't doubt that they play the game, and I don't doubt that they play quite decently if they've been selected by South Korea, because their community seems sizable. But again, usually they seem to focus on BSS more, and they haven't really worked out the transition to Smogon formats quite so well yet, by the looks of it. So you have to rank them in maybe next year, but you never know. Maybe the trend is upwards. Maybe last year was the trial year and they've been secretly grinding. We don't really know. We come to Switzerland. Switzerland has been around for actually a pretty long time. Not super long. But I remember them showing up. Okay, not quite in 20... Okay, really? Just in 2022? I thought they were older. Never mind. Okay, well, they've been around in 2022 and 2023. 2022 they finished 8-8. Very respectable performance. Andorian, legendary 2-0. Not very legendary, but I remember those games. They were good. He was quite good at the game. Last year, not so lucky. 6-10. Going downwards, and obviously those names, they're not really very well known. They're not seen around certainly in officials, but even in unofficials, they're not super active players. They're not bad. I mean, you see them put up 8-8, which was really solid, and it's mostly the same people this year. But last year they had some struggles, and in general they don't quite seem to have the quality to make it up. I don't think they have no chances. They definitely have. I mean, like I said, most of this roster has been around for 2 years, so they've been around. They know the tournament. They put up decent numbers, but they will have to definitely overperform to make it to the playoffs or to qualify directly. So I am giving Switzerland a low chance. I think I will place them above Austria, below Africa. And we come to the last team, which is Venezuela. Venezuela is another team who showed up in 2022. They went 5-11. They showed up in 2023. They went 5-11. They don't really seem to have any new players that will really upgrade their performances. It's another team that really suffers from all of their best players playing for Latin America. I believe Fake is from Venezuela. I believe Lycans is from Venezuela. Yes. So there is a world where maybe they are a little better. But as it currently stands, Venezuela, you have to look at history. You have to look and say 5-11, 5-11. We should expect another 5-11. I think they are a bit better than the unknowns of Portugal and South Korea, but they are definitely expected to be one of the worst teams. With that said, Bangladesh went from 5-11 to 12-4, so who knows? But this, I think, I mean, there's just nothing to say about these players because they're just the same guys, you know. So unless they've improved, they should be expected to do about the same. So this is my final tier list. Maybe I can move Africa up. Yeah, that seems fair. Seems fair to move Africa up. Maybe even above Greece, actually. I don't know about Africa or Greece. But yeah, I think, well, okay, so there are 5 spots for automatic qualification. I think the first 3 are basically locked and the other 2 are pretty likely. And then there are 4 slots which will go to a playoff. And I would not be surprised if they are these 4 teams. I think Greece, I think Africa, if they have a good run, they could easily sneak into the playoffs. And I think these teams below, they have some work to do. Switzerland and Austria, I think is realistic to see them in playoffs if they have a really good year. I think the other 4, I would be shocked. But it's World Cup. We're coming fresh off the single best Cinderella story in any Smogon tournament ever. And, well, this is my expectations for this tournament. Who knows? I am very excited to see how wrong or how right I will end up being. And yeah, it's World Cup season, baby. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my yapping. I hope I gave you some historical context and some interesting insights into these teams that perhaps you didn't have before. Yeah, I am very, 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 very excited to watch this tournament unfold. I will see you guys next week if you are one of the players who are interested in my regular WI content. If you're interested in World Cup, I don't know if I'm going to do any videos after this. But hey, thanks for watching to the end. See you guys.